Another story from Lovebug Productions, and this one is read by Grandpa or Grandfather, whichever. The book is entitled Curious George Rides a Bike, and this is George. He lived with his friend, the man with the yellow hat. He was a good little monkey, but he always was curious. This morning George was curious the moment he woke up, because he knew it was a very special day. Out of the box came a bicycle. George was delighted. That's what he had always wanted. He knew how to ride a bicycle, but he had never had one of his very own. "I must go now," said the man in the yellow hat. "I'll be back in time for the show. Be careful with your new bike, George, and keep close to the house while I'm gone." George could ride very well. He could even do all sorts of tricks. Monkeys are good at that. For instance, he could ride this way with both hands off the bar. He could ride this way like a cowboy in a wild bronco. He could ride backwards. But after a while, George got tired of doing tricks, and he started to deliver the papers on one side of the street as he'd been told. When he came to the last house, he saw a little river in the distance. George was curious. He wanted to know what the river was like, so instead of turning back to deliver the rest of the papers, he just went on. While riding along, George kept thinking of boats all the time. It would be such fun to have a boat, but how could he get one? He thought, and then he had an idea. He got off the bicycle, took a newspaper out of the bag, began to fold it. First he folded down the corners, then the other corners. Watching his fleet sailing down the river. Whoops, I'm sorry, I skipped a page. Anyway, he folded a bunch of corners, Anya. Now the moment had come to launch the paper boat. Would it float? Yes, it did. So George decided to make some more boats. Finally, he had used up all the papers and had made so many boats that he could not count them. A whole fleet of paper boats. Watching his fleet sail down the river, George felt like an admiral. But watching his fleet, he forgot to watch where he was going. Suddenly there was a terrific jolt. The bicycle had hit a rock and George flew off the seat head first. Luckily, George was not hurt, but the front wheel of the bicycle was all out of shape and the tire was blown out. George tried to ride the bicycle, but of course it wouldn't go.